All right, everybody, what's going on? And welcome to today's edition of SWAC Talk. This is the show we cover the SWAC inside and out. I'm your tour guide around the SWAC, C. Wells, coming at you, and we are continuing our 2024 season previews. Today we have the Alcorn State Braves, aka the Big Bad Braves. Y'all know how it goes down. Um, we're going to talk about what I expect from this team this season. I am pretty high on this team right now. So, we're going to share my thoughts on this. And like I said, you can go back and check out my previous previews on Alabama A&M and Alabama State. I have Bethune-Cookman coming up on Wednesday, FAMU coming up on next Sunday. SWAC Smoke live on Thursday at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. Hit those socials. On my Twitter page, I have a pinned tweet that lists all the dates of the upcoming previews, so you can check that out on my Twitter, Swag Talk 76. Also, Facebook Swag Talk, Instagram Swag Talk. Like the video, comment, and share your thoughts on what you expect from Alcorn this season, and subscribe to the channel, man. If you haven't done so already, like I said, we continuing to grow. And I thank everybody for subscribing already. If you have already, if you haven't, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and rock with us. So let's go ahead and start talking Alcorn State football. Last season, the Braves kind of started to get back to where they had been in previous seasons. It ended up in a tie for first place in the West with Prairie View. Missed the championship game because they did lose to Prairie View on a last second field goal, 23-20. But last season, Alcorn finished at 7-4 and 6-2 in conference. Had a record of 4-1 at home, 3-3 on the road. So all around winning season. Like I said, missed the SWAC championship basically by one game. So they lost some key contributors to this team. But they've been recruiting really well, and they seem to be filling some of those holes they lost. One of the biggest spots that they lost was head coach. Fred McNair left Alcorn, was going to Texas Southern. That fell through. Ended up as a tight end coach at Southern. Enter Cedric Thomas, former head coach at UAPB, and I believe that there's not going to be a huge drop off. I think, he's already been there. He does have the head coaching experience. So, I think they're going to keep some things going. Now, they do have, like I said, some holes to fill. If they can fill those holes, then you can see a really good outlook for this team. But, they do have some questions. And like I say, in order to talk about where we're going, we have to kind of look back at where we came from. And let's take a look at the 2023 season for the Alcorn State Braves, how they did in terms of statistics. This was a team who defensively was pretty good. They had a solid defense last season. Offense got better as the year went on. Aaron Allen had a really solid season for Alcorn. Was kind of a question mark coming into the season. Ultimately ended up being a pretty good team last season. 7th in scoring offense at 22.4 points per game. 4th in scoring defense at 22.5 points per game. Total defense, they were 5th at 339 yards per game. Allowed 28 touchdowns, 5.5 yards per play. Total offense, they were 6th at 349 yards per game. 27 touchdowns, 5.8 yards per play. Rushing offense, they were 6th at 140 yards per game, 12 touchdowns on the season, 4.4 yards per carry. Rushing defense, they finished the season 4th at 140.6 yards per game, allowed 14 touchdowns, 4.2 yards per play. Passing offense, they finished at 6th place, 208 yards per game, 15 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, completed 61% of their passes. 2,296 yards. Passing defense, they finished the season at 6th at 198.6 yards per game, had 14 touchdowns, allowed 15 interceptions. Those 15 interceptions were the third most in the league. So they were really good at forcing turnovers. Defensively, they were second in the league with 30 sacks as a defense. They allowed 17, so that was fourth place. So really did a good job of protecting the quarterback and getting pressure on the quarterback. Conversions, third downs, they were sixth in the league at 36.4%. Third down defense, they were fifth at 34.9. Fourth down offense, they finished the season at third place at 61.5%. And fourth down defense, they were 10th at 66.7%. Looking at some of the key returning players, there's not a lot of huge numbers coming back. They do return their second leading rusher, Jacorian Sewell. He had 198 yards on the season and one touchdown at 5.7 yards per carry with a longer 62 yards. Also, Tyler Macon returns as one of the top rushers with 163 yards and one touchdown. He had a 75-yard run last season. Passing game, Macon returns. He was 2 of 13 on the season for 2 of 13 for 31 yards. Had 2 interceptions, no touchdowns. Only played in 5 games. Just really had a tough start to the season. Just couldn't really get going. They do bring in Xavier Vaughn, who ironically started his career at Pine Bluff, ended up at Lincoln in Missouri. He transfers over to add some depth to the quarterback battle. They lose their top 2 receivers, but they return one of the top tight ends in the league, Tavarius Truck Griffin. 25 catches for him, 317 yards, 4 touchdowns, which tied for the team lead. Averaged 12.6 yards per catch, had a longer 52. Also, Tavares Adams, the top returning receiver, with 17 catches for 210 yards on the season. Also averaged 12.3 yards per catch with a longer 49. Not a lot returning after that. So there's a lot of there's a lot of production loss on offense as a whole. Your leading rusher, leading receiver, leading passer, all gone. So there's a lot of opportunity for guys to kind of step in and make some things happen. So there's, if there was anything that would be a big question to me, it would be on that side of the ball. Defensively, you lose Terrence Ellis, who's your leading tackler, but you return Edwin Summerauer and Stamarion Edwards, who are your second and third leading tacklers, with 63 and 62 tackles respectively. You return one of the top defensive linemen in the conference, Malachi Bailey, 15 and a half tackles for loss, first team all SWAC preseason guy, 9 sacks as well. So that's a guy who's gonna be a nice force for your defense in terms of interceptions. McKelton and Summerall both have 2 interceptions to lead the team, returning defensively. Special teams, you're losing your punter, but you return Noah Kiani, who is your leading field goal kicker and kickoff specialist. He was 13 or 18 on field goals with a longer 42, 27 or 28 on extra points with 66 total points. And he had 45 kickoffs for 2,455 yards, 54.6 yard average with 4 touchbacks on the season. Nobody really of note returning in the return game, so that's definitely something that is gonna be that's another opportunity for somebody to step in and take charge. Didn't really have a lot of success in returns as a team. They just weren't that great at it. They were 11th in kickoff returns with an average of 16 and a half yards per return. They were last in punt returns with an average of 2.4 yards per punt return. So there is an opportunity for somebody there. Like I said, they brought in quite a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. They had a really strong early recruiting class. They were able to hold on to it by keeping Coach Thomas. So we can kind of see how this team develops, as the season goes on, because they're gonna have to kind of mold and grow as the season goes on, because like I said, there's not a lot of continuity on offense returning. You, like I said, you have some top talent there, but you gotta get Griffin his touches. I know in the spring they worked on maybe working him out of the backfield, keeping him as a receiving threat. You got to get the ball in his hands. You got to get your running game going, which is something Alcorn has always been known for. Just having Coach Thomas establish his vision, coming in and basically being a part of a program that's expected to win the SWAC West Division. They were picked first at Media Day in the West, so there is a lot of expectations for this team. I'm somebody who is kind of high on this team as well. So can they keep that going? Without much of a drop off? Can they continue to be strong running the ball? Can the defense continue to be ball hawks? Last season they were plus 11 in turnover margin, so they had a really good defense in terms of forcing turnovers, and they took care of the football. So that is, that's just one of those things that they need to continue to do to develop and mold and grow. They have to find more ways to put points on the board. Last season, you averaged, you didn't really score a ton of points, other than if you run it through the schedule, they had 14 against Southern Miss, 10 against Stephen F. Austin, 17 against McNeese, 20 against Prairie View, 23 against Bama State, 25 against Alcorn, 31 against Pine Bluff, 24 against Valley. They hit 44 on Southern, 10 against Alcorn, 10 against Texas Southern, and 28 against Jackson State. So they only crossed 30 points twice last season, and they had 4 games where they scored less than 20 points. So they were kind of like, some of those games, they just, they didn't really they couldn't really put a lot of points on the board. So they have to find a way to get the offense clicking, to get the points up there and continue to be able to score. I mean, yes, you can stop people because your defense basically gave up less than 25 points per game. So if you can continue to stop people and you score a few more points, you're going to find yourself with a few more W's. When you kind of look at what this season is going to be in terms of schedule, they open up with 2 FBS games back to back. And if you hear me talk about that, talk about scheduling and things, I'm not a fan of 2 FBS games, period. But I definitely don't like back-to-back FBS games. They open up on August 29th, which is a Thursday, against UAB, and then they get Vandy. I'm about to say Valley. Get Vandy on September 7th for the first 2 weeks of the season. So those are 2 tough games right out the gate, back-to-back at that. You're gonna have an opportunity to kind of get some things in motion in these first couple of weeks. And just kind of, I think kind of feel yourself out before you get your first home game against Edward Waters on September 14th. So, you have an early, all 4 your non-conference games, including McNeese on the 21st. All 4 your non-conference games are your first 4 games. So you have almost like a preseason. Basically, you have four games to kind of work out, some things. You got 2 FBS games, and then you got a D2 game, and then you got FCS game. I think they split this. I think they split these 4 games and come out at 2-2. McNeese is going to be a little bit more difficult than they've been the last couple of years. I don't know how good McNeese is going to be, but when you look at, they made some additions to their offense. They have a new quarterback. So you kind of expect for the offense to be a little bit better than they've been in recent years. I don't know how good this team is going to be, but you got to expect them to start to take some strides moving forward. You open up conference play with 2 very, very winnable games at Valley on the 28th of September, and then at home against Pine Bluff for homecoming on October 5th. So now you're finding yourself in a position that you could be sitting at 4-2 overall and 2-0 in conference. Right out the gate, two games that can help you get going before you get into a tougher stretch after that. You do have 3 straight games against teams who are gonna be battling it out for their respective divisions. You got at Grambling on the 12th of October. You get at Southern on the 19th of October, and then on the after a bye week, you get Alabama State in Mobile. So you have 3 straight games away from home, which are none of them are easy. And this is probably the portion of the schedule that really is gonna make or break your season. Now, I and for my predictions, I have them going 2-1 in this stretch. I had them beating Grambling and I had them beating Southern. Both of those are 2 places that are going to be tough to play, but I think they can, I think they can manage those 2 games. I do have them losing to Alabama State, but that's another game that could be a coin toss. All 3 of those games could possibly be toss-up games, but right now I think they would be favored in 2 of those 3. So you're coming out of that. You're basically coming out of that in a pretty good spot. Having 3 games on the road like that and finding a way to get wins in those games. You find yourself sitting pretty well going into your stretch run, which is still going to be tough. Because in your stretch run, you have at Texas Southern. You have Texas Southern at home, at Prairie View at their home against Jackson State. So you're looking at a team in Prairie View who could be a contender for the West Division, and you have a Jackson State team at the end of the season who could be battling it out for the East Division championship. Neither one, like I said, this schedule is not easy at all. So when you look at where this team stands schedule wise, it doesn't do them a lot of favors. They have a lot of tough games back to back. They start off with, like I said, they start off with two easier games in conference, and then it ramps up from there. This final 3 game stretch, I have them going. I have them going 2-1 in that stretch. I do have them losing to Prairie View. I think they're gonna probably end up in some odd tie or something like that in the division. But right now, I do have them beating Jackson State and losing to Prairie View and beating TSU to close out that little 3 game stretch. I have them at 8-4, 6-2. That can go a bunch of different ways. I don't know how much better that their record can get. I do have them at a ceiling of 9-3, but I'm not quite confident in that. I have a floor of 6-6. I think, again, kind of like I said in my Bama State preview, anything worse than 6-6, I think something went horribly wrong. I think this is probably more a 7-5 type of team. 7-5, 5-3 in conference, something like that, which is still in the mix for the division. I think that they have so many games that can go either way. When you look at in conference play, you look at Grambling, Southern, Bama State, Prairie View, and Jackson. That's 5 games out of 8 that are probably toss-ups. And then you have, Texas Southern, Pine Bluff, and Valley games that they should be favored in unless this team is just not playing well. You can throw McNeese into that toss-up in that toss-up mix and throw Edward Waters into the pretty heavy favorite mix. So that's 6 games that are toss-ups on the schedule, 4 games that are basically heavily favored wins, and then 2 games against FBS opponents that are most likely L. So there's a lot of games that can go either way, and that's probably going to be the difference between if this team, finishes with a 7-5 record, 8-4 record, or 9-3. If they finish, 6-6 or worse, they have to avoid those surprising losses. Like last season, that TSU loss, the year before that, the TSU loss. They have to avoid those kind of games and basically survive those first 2 weeks. If they can make it through those first 2 weeks without much injury, then I think they can, take that Edward Waters game and work out a lot of kinks, and then jump directly into the McNeese game and then into conference play. Because like I said, they're when you break it up, when you break the schedule up, you have a 3-game stretch that's tough, and then you have a 2-game stretch to close out the season that's tough. Um, no, no, only one bye week, and that breaks the conference. That breaks conference play up into 2 4-game stretches. So if you can come out of that first stretch at 3-1 or 4-0 in conference after those first 4 games, then you're going to be in a great spot. I mean, you can really, finish in that spot like that, or you could honestly probably come out of that 2-2. I don't think anything. I don't think you'll finish anything worse than 2-2 out of those first 4 games. If you do, that's not really good. That those like then, like I said, you close out with another tough stretch. You could go 2-2 in those 4 games. You could go, 3-1. You can go 1-3. It is, you're gonna know what his team is by the time they get to their bye week on October 26th. And after that, you're basically just gonna, you're gonna go ahead and take it to the rest of to the end of the season. Like I said, I like Alcorn as a program. The more I looked at this preview, the more I kind of saw some more questions than I really anticipated. But I still think that with the West Division being the way it is right now, everybody has questions. So if there is a year that you want to come into a season with questions, this is the year. If you can find a way to survive those couple stretches, then you'll find yourself in a good spot. The cross division matchups, you have two of your top contenders out of the East and the worst team in the East. So that doesn't do you any favors. I just don't like the schedule. So if there was anything that I would say could change my perception of this team right now, it would be that schedule. Like I said, that makes it a little bit tougher. And I gotta be 100. If I'm gonna hold certain teams to standards because of the losses that they have, I have to do the same with a team that I kind of like. So I have, even though I have them and Purview probably finishing tied for first, they both have a lot of questions and they both can go either way. But in wrapping this up, I do think Alcorn finishes at 8-4, 6-2. Although I'm more leaning towards 7-5, but I'm gonna stick with 8-4. I would set their I would set their their preseason win total at like 7.5 or 8. That's pretty much the same thing. But I think that they can get there, with some breaks. They do have to have some major contributors step up on the offensive side of the ball, especially. If they can do that, then I think they'll be fine. If they can't, and one thing that gives me a little bit of pause is at quarterback. Vaughn completed 49% of his passes at Lincoln last season, so that's a cause for concern, but that's not to say a guy can't get better. Tyler Macon, he needs to take a step as a passer. Last season, he had great wheels and came in with a lot of expectations, but he did not pass the ball well. Somebody's going to have to take the reins, and continue to move this offense as other pieces around them gel. So with that being said, I'm your tour guide around the SWAC, C. Wells, signing out, and I'm going to catch y'all on the rebound. Peace.